Now, it's not quite as sexy as the Club World Cup trophy, but it will do. What's good, guys? Welcome back to Behind the Dugouts, and we are world champions. What a performance! What a game from the manager to the players. It was spectacular. And I don't think any Chelsea fan expected us to play like we did last night. It was beautiful. And to all those haters out there, to every one of those other fan bases that said we had no chance, we shouldn't even turn up, that they are going to roll us over just like they have done to every other team, beating every other English team that they've come up against, but not the mighty Chelsea. We wiped the floor with them. There was only one team in that game. From front to back, we were superb in every single department, even down to the manager's preparation, the team selection. It was perfect. And we took on, you know, what most believe to be the best team in the world currently, the Champions League winners. Well, not anymore. The best team in the world is Chelsea Football Club, the world champions. And you guys need to hold that. When you're stepping to us, just remember that you're talking to the world champions. Guys, I don't even know where to start. There's so much that I want to discuss from this game. I planned to do this video straight after the match last night, but unfortunately, I lost my voice. I literally tried. Sat down in front of the camera, tried to, record, and nothing was coming out. I just couldn't get any words out my mouth. But I have had, time once I could eventually actually get to sleep. It was incredibly difficult. I was running on literally pure adrenaline, pure excitement, to having watched my team lift that trophy, the first ever World Cup champions. I mean, it's never going to get old saying that. And we can say that continuously. We can relish in it. We can abuse it for the next 4 years, because we are the world champions, and we're going to have a beautiful gold badge situated right in the middle of our shirt, and it's going to be beautiful to have. And I cannot wait. As soon as it's ready, as soon as I can get the kit with that badge on, I am copping that kit straight away, and I'm going to be repping it on this channel, because now this is not only, the home for Chelsea discussion, for Chelsea talk, this is the home of the world champions. But I have had obviously some time to have a bit more of an in-depth look on the game and how we managed to do what we did to PSG, completely dismantle them in this fixture. We out PSG'd PSG. We went in, and I was talking in my review about how PSG are adaptable, can play many different styles of football, in order to go against the type of opposition that they're coming up against. And that's what we did last night. Two very different halves of football. The first half, on the front foot, clearly tactically got everything right. And I'm going to go into that in a bit more detail in how I think Maresca prepared and planned for this game to get the upper hand. But it was just a pure attacking display. The football was fluid. The movement was fluid. João Pedro, the finishing, Cole Palmer. I mean, it may have been incredibly hot in America, but it was ice cold in that stadium last night. What a performance. And, Cole Palmer has obviously had his stick this season in terms of not been producing the numbers, not been producing the performances that he did under Pochettino and the early parts of the season. But one thing you cannot ever say about Cole Palmer is he does not turn up. He always turns up in the big fixtures. When we need it most, Palmer is there, and he's doing this every single time. He was superb last night, and, just a link up across the board. But I have to give my props to Maresca first before I get into the players' performance. And, we're going to go into as many of them, because for me, if I could, I'd, highlight them all as player of the match, because that's how they performed last night. But I have to speak about Maresca first. He got everything down to a T. Tactically, he He got the whole structure. I mean, there was obviously question marks when we saw the lineup. Again, the Reece James experiment, but it worked for this game. It was perfect. And I think there was three key decisions that Maresca made tactically that basically won us this game. And again, this is my opinion, but for me, the first one was the isolation of Nuno Mendes on the right hand side, and we isolated him against Malo Gusto and Cole Palmer, and they ran him ragged in that first half. Absolutely destroyed him. Malo Gusto got in behind him so many times. They were doing little 1-2s. When Nuno was coming out to Gusto, he was just pinging it off to Palmer. If he was then coming out to Palmer, Palmer was just laying it back to Gusto. And they literally tore up that right side. And there's no surprise that the goals, the involvements all came down from that right-hand channel. You know, the first one, ball out from Sanchez, Gusto, you know, running in, getting in behind Mendes, went for the initial shot, got a bit lucky, come back to him, laid it off to Palmer, tucked it in, bottom left-hand corner. Literally an identical second goal. Down the right-hand side, Palmer driving in, faked the pass out to the overlapping Gusto, cut inside, literally same shot, same corner. Donnarumma beaten again. And then for the third one, in that right-hand channel, João Pedro peels off the defender, makes a run in behind. A lovely, lovely weighted, intricate pass straight through the line from Palmer, and the most outrageous finish. And we've got to think, right, when we're looking at chipping the goalkeeper, there's generally a little bit of space in and between the player to judge the distance of the goal. He had a split second to get the angle, to get the weight, to get the accuracy before Donnarumma got out and clattered him, and he did that all, just getting to the ball, little dink over it, the purest of touches, and put that ball into the back of the net. And what an impact João Pedro has had, you know, from being on the beach to scoring 3 goals in 3 games and winning the Club World Cup. Unreal from him. The second thing that I think Maresca got right was the midfield. We know they play it as a 3. So, you know, he went in to counteract that. He went in with his own 3. Obviously, Lavia being injured. I know he was on the bench, but it was pretty, it was pretty crystal clear that he was not going to start this game, or, you know, probably feature depending on how it was going. So I think the 3 midfield, it worked. But what they did was Vitinha for PSG, whenever they, you know, with the ball, he always dropped into the defensive line to make like a 3 in the back to allow the fullbacks to run forward. And what Chelsea did is every time we won the ball back, we would break through the middle, that gap that Vitinha had left because he had dropped back. And they did it all the time through the first half, to the point where, you know, PSG had to change the structure and stop Vitinha dropping into the back line because it was causing them so much problems. And again, that is a tactical decision from Maresca. He's seen that. He's looked back at the games that PSG have played in the past, and you can see that that's Vitinha's role. He tends to just drop in the back line to allow the fullbacks to fly forward, because as we know, Hakimi and Nuno Mendes, they love to get involved in attack, and it just wasn't working for him. And that was down to the way that Maresca structured that midfield, structured the press, and, you know, instilled into the players that when we get that ball, to break into that space that Vitinha has vacated, to get onto the attack as quick as possible. And then the last thing that I think he got, you know, spot on was what he asked the 2 centre-backs to do. I don't know if you noticed in the game, but what he got is whichever side or whichever centre-back Dembele was standing next to, he was man-marked by that centre-back. There was occasions where Dembele would drop in to the midfield part to receive the ball because he wasn't getting on it. He, you know, for a player of his quality, he was, you know, non-existent in that game, and that was probably the most across their whole front line. And that's down not because they had a bad game, it's just down to Chelsea being a level above them. And he would drop in, but what the centre-backs would do is whoever side he was on, they would follow him in and, you know, keep touch tight to him, to not allow him space to turn, to not allow him space to get on the ball and pick out, you know, those passes in behind. And they did it every time. So when he would go to Levi's side, Levi would follow him. And I mean, I saw at one point, Levi had followed him all the way into the final third. And then it would switch over. If he moved over and he was, you know, predominantly sitting on Chalobah's side, Chalobah would follow him in. And they both kept to that task throughout the whole game. and they managed Dembele and limited any opportunities they had. And for me, those were the three key factors, personally, that I think Maresca got absolutely spot on to win this game, to produce the level of performance that they did against this PSG side. And it was fantastic. And then you've got getting the tactics right is one thing. It's then getting the players to execute it. And there is not one player on that field that didn't execute that game plan to perfection. To perfection. And one thing I can say that I've not been able to say for a very long time, my God, were we clinical. When we got a chance, we put it away. João Pedro scored with his first shot. I think Palmer scored within his second. He had that tester, giving a bit of an eye-opener to PSG of what type of game this was going to be, where the ball went in. João Pedro played that little back heel cut back, and Palmer just missed by getting it on the outside of the left-hand post. And that was a warning sign to PSG straight away. And after that, getting the ball in behind, shot, goal. Ball in behind, shot, goal. And it was clinical display in the first half. And then you go into the second half, and it was a complete change in the way that we were playing. Just like I said, PSG can adapt. They change their style of football on the fly, mid-game. It's what Maresca did. We didn't come out in the second half all gung-ho. We played similar to the first half, but we played a more defensive structure to nullify any attack. Of course, PSG were going to come out with a little bit more fire in the first half. And the first 5 minutes of that second half game, they did look like they were going to, produce something. They came with a little bit more than they had over the entire the first half. But Chelsea quickly put out that fire, turned it to smoke, and they nullified anything. I mean, Kvaratskhelia was coming off, before the 60th minute because he did nothing. He couldn't get past Gusto. Gusto had one hell of a game. He was one of the players that a lot of fans were thinking that if he was to go on that right back position and, play the inverted role, which he didn't in this game, he played as a proper right back, bombing up and down that wing, that if he was to go up against Kvaratskhelia, he was going to have a really tough day. And I think it was the other way around, to be honest. Kvaratskhelia had no opportunity every time. And what they did very well, the Chelsea players, is they hunted in packs. So it would never just be really one player defending or one player trying to stop the ball. They were hunting in, twos and threes. There was one point, and this was like the 85th minute, you had, I think it was Hakimi, bombing down. It might have actually been Desiree Doué now that I think about it. He was bombing down the right-hand side, and you had Cucurella, you had Moises Caicedo, and you had Andre Santos all chasing him down for that ball. And, that's at the end of the game when you think the legs are dead. And that's how they did it. They just, every time a PSG player picked up the ball, they would just have loads, one or two players in and around there to just close their gap and not allow them to go forward. So either they were going back or we were turning over the ball and breaking quickly on the counter. And that's pretty much how the second half went. I don't recall really any threat on the goal. And if there was any threat, constant threat on the goal, Sanchez, I mean, I don't even know if that was Sanchez in the goal yesterday. We're going to have to, check his registration, because that was ridiculous. I've never seen a performance by Sanchez that's been even 50% of what he produced yesterday. He was superb. His distribution was brilliant. He was, making his big saves. Now, we know Sanchez is a brilliant shot stopper, and his distribution is the one thing that he tends to cause a bit of problems. His decision making sometimes can be a bit, heart in your mouth kind of moments, but he got everything right yesterday, and he was superb, bar one little moment, one Sanchez moment, where he, thought he could skin. I understand we were on top and, confidence is flying, but Sanchez, we're not doing roulettes and things in the, trying to beat the striker. We'll leave that to, the more capable players. But other than that, he was brilliant. Backline, superb. Trevor Chalobah, unreal performance. Unreal. Solid, mopped up everything, aerially won everything, won all his duel. He was brilliant. Cucurella, absolute monster again. The debate of who's better, Hakimi or Cucurella. Well, I think that pretty much answered it, innit? Absolutely held him in his pocket. I think the PSG players are still coming out the pockets of the Chelsea players at the moment. It was just a brilliant across ball. And then, the midfield too of Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez. Again, Moises Caicedo, he is the best central defensive midfielder in the world. It's just no debate on it. His energy levels, the rate that he wins the ball back, the passes that he can pick out. He's not a player that just does all the defensive and all the dirty work, but is not a great passer. He can ping a ball. And then you've just got Enzo, the quality, the composure, the way that he can just pick these, 40, 50-yard passes across the pitch is just beautiful to watch. And they just worked so well, so balanced. And then, to have Reece James behind them in that extra defensive sort of role. I mean, you hardly saw Reece James really in and around the 6-yard box. His main job was between sort of our defensive box and up to just outside the final third. And he was just mopping up everything. He was putting in big challenges, putting in a real captain's performance. And then you just got the front line, and it just speaks for itself. Pedro Neto, not involved so much on an attacking sense, but defensively, he was brilliant. There was one occasion I did feel pretty sorry for him, to be fair, when I think it was Reece James got the ball in the middle and we were on a break, and he was so open on that left-hand side. Like, he could have, set up his own little camp out there, and he was screaming for it. And they just either they didn't see it or they just felt that they couldn't make that pass. And that, I can pretty much sure if that ball went out to him, he was in behind. And, I think their centre-back in Beraldo, he had a bit of a stinker, across the board. They didn't play too well, but he was incredibly, he caused them a lot of issues. He was making some really silly mistakes and letting us, take the mick out of him, really. But, Pedro Neto, again, he still produced in his defensive work. He was constantly working, supporting Cucurella, which he needed to, because they were trying to overload that right-hand side for them with Hakimi and Desiree Doué, and he didn't allow that. And he was just, shackling Hakimi and holding him to his position rather than allowing him to bomb him behind all the time. And then you've got Cole Palmer and João Pedro. I mean, the fact that João Pedro has only been here for 10 days, if that, and he's come from holiday, he's just joined the side, had a few training sessions, played 3 matches. He looks like he's been playing with the squad for seasons and season after season. He's just fitted and slotted in brilliantly, and I'm sorry, he is the guy. He is the guy, technically brilliant. He knows how to run a channel. He's physically stout. He's aggressive, and my God, can he finish? I've seen 3 different type of finishing so far in 3 games. An absolute powerhouse to break the crossbar, a precisioned curler from outside the box, and a cheeky little dink inside the 6-yard area. He looks like he's got everything, and the link up between the players, and especially him and Cole Palmer, that they've got at the moment is going to be frightening to watch, because it's only going to get better. Again, this is what they're like when they've only just met each other. Imagine what they're going to be like 6 months from now, a year from now, when they've played, 20, 30 games together. The understanding is going to be immaculate. And then, and this is what we said about competition, right? So competition is super, super healthy, and it can take players to that next level that you've been wanting them to get to. And I think it's done that already with Liam Delap. He's come on the pitch to replace João Pedro, who had an amazing game. And he's come on, and within 2-3 minutes, he's breaking down, he's barged off the defender, getting in behind, and had a worldie of a shot. I mean, Donnarumma, to be fair, had a better second half. And in the first half, he couldn't get his hands near anything. And then, Liam Delap had another opportunity where if he just took a couple more steps to get past Donnarumma, it was an easy slot into the corner. But he had the defender bearing down and didn't want to take that chance of getting tackled. And to be fair, it was quite a lucky foot right at the end for Donnarumma to stop that ball from going in. But he came on with an intensity. He came on with an aggression going, I've seen what João Pedro's done in this game. I've seen what he's done in the last game, and I've got to prove myself if I want to fight for the spot. And that's what he did. He didn't come in. He didn't look, sheltered in himself. He didn't look nervous. He came on, and just produced the same level of performance that João Pedro was, producing in the first sort of slash a little bit of the second half. And that is so good for a team to have, because it's going to push all the other players on, and because they need to step up, and what they did against PSG last night is proved. We are back. We are back. These kids, the word that's been touted across for season after season, these kids that we've got in this team, they're not going to win anything. You can't win with kids. I beg to differ. We've won with kids. We've won with kids, and they have now become men. There was a switch after that Fulham game in that league last season. And ever since then, they have just gone from strength to strength, and they have changed completely. And to produce that performance against the best team in the world, you can't argue with that. We've done it. We've beaten them at their own game, and we didn't, a lot of it was, oh, you might win, but it was going to be a scrappy little 1-0. You're going to have to be really defensive. Even reporters coming out saying, are you preparing your team to suffer with the ball? I think PSG needed to prepare to suffer without the ball, because that's what happened. We played and beat them at their own game, and we were superb. And I do believe that we are back. We are back, and we are going to compete, not just compete. We are going to continue winning things, because these players have got a taste for it now. They've got a taste for it from the Conference League. They've, got an even bigger taste for it now after becoming world champions. It's just going to go on from here. I guarantee it. And I'm so excited to see, where this club is going to go moving forward, because let's be honest, it's been a tough, 3-4 years under, this club, especially under the new ownership. Us as fans not really knowing the direction it's going in, not understanding, the players that they're bringing in, and, for the reasoning. And then we're flipping players left, right and centre. And it was all to get to this point, to build a super team, in a sense, to build these young players and have them mould and just grow together. And that's what they're doing. They are growing, they are building, and they will become a super team as time goes on, and as they play more together, and as these develop. And what the club are doing now is just bringing in one or two, little players to strengthening these positions that we are, lacking in. And it's, the João Pedro signing, for instance, to bring him in when we did, midway through the tournament, going, look, we need something else. We need some extra firepower. We know what he can do. And they brought him in, and, look what he's produced. And I have to say, fair play to the club. Fair play. We've criticised them with, the way that they've spent their money, with some of the signings that they've made, the managerial appointments that they've made. And that criticism is fairly due. Like, they've deserved all the criticism they've received up to this point. But we have to take this, this idea, this squad that they have built, that has produced what none of us expected. No one came into this tournament expecting us to win it. Even myself, it was not full gone until sort of we hit the round 16 and I saw the fixtures. I had a good feeling that we were going to win this tournament. And they've produced this squad, and they've brought in players like Cole Palmer, and made the decision to bring in players like João Pedro. So they take as much credit into this as Maresca and the players do, just because they've been a part of the building of the squad. So in this instance, and though they've still got a lot to do, a lot of, smaller building parts, to fit a few more pieces into the squad to make it that perfect squad. I have to give them credit for what they've produced so far, and hopefully this is a good turning point for the club, that they won't make the same mistakes as they have in the past, and that they're going to continue to build on what is an exciting young project, which is now seeing some fruits to their labour from. But look, guys, there's nothing more to say on this other than we are world champions, and we are the best team in the world. It's plain and simple. I don't care what any of the other fan bases say. At the end of the day, we've won the Club World Cup. We are the world champions, and I'm going to be saying it for the next 4 years. I'm buzzing. The team, as I, over this, they've been brilliant. Maresca, perfect. Club, spot on with, the signings that have produced this squad. And all in all, what a day to be a Chelsea fan, and I cannot wait. When is the season start? Let's get this season started. Let's roll on the next season, win that Premier League. Let's win it all. Let's go out and win it all. And just a little message to all the other clubs out there: you better be worried, because we're coming for everything. That's all from me, guys. Take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.